Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam of our means of conquest, we first offer respectful obeisance to the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed, practically nil, and thus loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental hymns, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10. Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer. It's text number 46, not 47. 47 is tomorrow. So I guess I'll read the Sanskrit, and anyone who can follow can follow. See outside better.
We didn't read the 46th verse yesterday.
Huh?
We did not read the verse yesterday. Yesterday, Mayapur was reading the 45th. He was continuing in the purport. He didn't read the 46th verse.
Right. Yes, that's Mayapur, the one who told me it was text 46. I don't know why she put 47 on the board this morning. I have no idea. Okay, so text 46 is Ayam tu Brahmana kalpa savikalpa udahita vidi sararano yatra sarga prakrita vaikitaha Ayam tu Brahmana kalpa Vikalpa udahita vidi sararano yatra sarga prakrita vaikrita ayam tu brahmana kalpa savikalpa udahita vidi sararano yatra sarga prakrita vaikrita
Ayatu Brahmana Kalpa Savikalpa Udahrita Vidhi Sadharano Yatra Sarga Prakrita Vaikrita.
Okay, word to word, ayam. This process of creation and annihilation.
Creation.
Two. But. Brahmana. Brahma. Kalpa is one day. Savi Kalpa, along with the duration of the universes. Udahita, exemplified. Vidi, regulative principles. Sadharanaha, in summary, yatra, therein, saga, creation, prakrita, and the matter of material nature, vaikrita, disbursement. Translation. This process of creation and annihilation described in summary herein is the regulative principle during the duration of Brahma's one day. It is also a regulative principle in the creation of Mahat, in which the material nature is dispersed. Please repeat. This process of creation and annihilation. Described in summary. Herein is the regulative principle during the duration of Brahma's one day. It is also the regulative principle in the creation of Mahat, in which the material nature is dispersed. Srila Prabhupada's divine purport. There are three different types of creations, called Mahakalpa, Vikalpa, and Kalpa. In the Mahakalpa, the Lord assumes the first Purusha incarnation is Karanadakshayi Vishnu, with all the potencies of the Mahatattva and the 16 principles of creative matter and instruments. The creative instruments are 11, and the ingredients are 5, and all of them are products of Mahat, or materialistic ego. These creations by the Lord and his feature of Karanadakshayi Vishnu are called Mahakalpa. The creation of Brahma and dispersion of the material ingredients are called Vikalpa. And the creation by Brahma in each day of his life is called Kalpa. Therefore, each day of Brahma is called a Kalpa, and there are 30 Kalpas in terms of Brahma's days. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 17, as follows. Sahasra yuga prayantam aharyat brahmano vidu ratyam yuga sahasratam teho ratra vido janaha. In the upper planetary system, the duration of one complete day and night is equal to one complete year of this earth. This is accepted even by the modern scientists and attested by the astronauts. Similarly, in the region of still higher planetary systems, the duration of day and night is still greater than in the heavenly planets. The 4 yugas are calculated in terms of the heavenly calendars, and accordingly are 12,000 years in terms of the heavenly planets. This is called a Divya Yuga, and 1,000 Divya Yugas make one day of Brahma. The creation during the day of Brahma is called Kalpa, and the creation of Brahma is called Vikalpa. When Vikalpas are made possible by the breathing of Mahavishnu, this is called a Mahakalpa. They are regular systematic cycles of these Mahakalpas, Vikalpas, and Kalpas. In answer to Maharaj Parikshit's question about them, Sukadeva Goswami answered in the Pravasa Kanda of the Skanda Purana as follows. And the English will be similar, so I'll just read that. It says, therefore the 30 kalpas of Brahma are Swetakalpa, Nila Lohita, Vamanade, Tantra, Ravara, Prana, Brihat Kalpa, Kandapa, Sajota, Ishana, Yana, Sarashpata, Udana, Garuda, Karma, Krauma, Korma, I can't get it right now. Narasimha, Samadhi, Agneya, Vishnuja, Shaura, Somakalpa, Bhavana, Supuma, Vaikunta, Vachisha, Valikalpa, Vairaja, Gurikalpa, Maheshwar, and Paitrikalpa. These are Brahma's days only. And he has to live months and years, up to 100. So we can just imagine how many creations there are, and kalpas only. Then again, there are vikalpas, which are generated by the breathing of Mahavishnu. It's stated in the Brahma Samhita, Yashaika Nishvashita Kalam Attavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagat Antanataha. The Brahmins live only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu. So the exhaling and inhaling of Vishnu are Mahakalpas. And all of these are due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For no one else is the master of all creations. Thus ends the Bhagavatam purport to the 46th verse of the second canto, 10th chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer.
It should be so the exhaling and inhaling of Vishnu or actually Vikalpa, not Mahakalpa.
What's that?
The last sentence. Brahmas live only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu. So the breathing period of Mahavishnu is called Vikalpa, it was said before also. Then so the exhaling and inhaling of Vishnu are called Mahakalpas. It should be Vikalpa, not Mahakalpa. Mahakalpa is the time when Karma-daksha Vishnu comes into existence.
Well, when it comes into existence.
Vikalpa is a lifetime of Brahma.
Mahakalpa, the Lord assumes the first Purusha incarnation of Krandachi Vishnu with all the potencies of the Mahatattva. The creative instruments are 11, the ingredients are 5, and all of them are products of Mahat materialistic ego. These creations by the Lord in his feature of Krandachi Vishnu are called Mahakalpa. The creation of Brahma and dispersion of the material ingredients are called Vikalpa. And the creation by Brahma in each day of life is called Kalpa. Therefore, each day of Brahma is called a Kalpa. And there are 30 Kalpas in terms of Brahma's days. So the exhaling and inhaling of Vishnu.
We are the first one now. Out of the 30 kalpas, we are the first one. Shveta kalpa.
What, we're only in the first day of a month?
Yeah.
Okay. So the exhaling and inhaling of Vishnu are Mahakalpas. And all of these are due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmas live only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu. Well, the Vikalpa could also be understood as Garbhadachi Vishnu creating Brahma.
It's defined as a one breath time of Mahavishnu.
Yeah, that's his life. But how they divide the kalpas into Mahakalpa, Vikalpa, and Kalpa. Kalpa is, Brahma's creation, but then Vikalpa is the creation of Brahma and the dispersion of the energies, it says. And the Mahakalpa is Krandaksha Vishnu creating the Mahatattva and lying within it. So it all takes place, the Kalpa and the Vikalpa takes place in his breathing, his exhaling and his inhaling. And so I don't know, how the authorities, if they'll define that also as part of the Mahakalpa, or whether it will, that will only be called the Vikalpa. I'm not sure. Anyway, I offer my obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who is opening our eyes with the torch of knowledge, although they are certainly shut by the darkness of ignorance. Yesterday when I read over this verse, I had some things in mind that by my lack of memory and forgetfulness and slumber, it's all disappeared and now nothing's coming to my mind. But the Vishnu is everything and everywhere. We also, the little jiva expansion, we have no existence without Vishnu. So as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that Vishnu is the source of forgetfulness as well as remembrance. So everything is a result of Vishnu. And it's amazing because Krishna is just enjoying his eternal Leela in Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. And for his, not even for his material creation, beyond that, in Vaikuntha worlds, he's there is in his Vishnu forms, his Narayana form. And it's only from an expansion of expansions that he begins this material creation, which is quite different. In the spiritual sky, everything is self-illuminated, it's eternal, it's ever-existing. There are varieties of pastimes the Lord's enjoying, both in Vaikuntha and in Krishnaloka. They are ever-incarnations, such as Lord Ramachandra and Lord Nrsimha, who also have their planets. And there are amazing jivatmas there, who they're all not in four-handed Vishnu form. Some of them are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam Rika. Some of them have thousands and millions of heads, and some of them have these miraculous looking types of bodies. And people, they can't, it's very difficult to distinguish between the Supreme Narayana and all of his devotees in Vishnu forms. That everything is just so opulent and powerful, and the atmosphere so subcharged with dynamic energy. Just to be there, the senses required to be there to perceive anything makes one surcharged with infinite energy. So the material creation is, quite different. To have a creation composed of what we're familiar with, these lower modes of nature, such as darkness and ignorance, and this rajasic passion and mundane goodness, is very different from the spiritual world. But it is a vast creation that completely befuddles the little bitty jiva and his different forms, even in the form of Brahma himself, who is the first person, the son of Govardhan Vishnu, and who engineers the whole thing on behalf of Vishnu. Still, it can even confuse him. It is such a vast and miraculous creation. So what to speak of jivas who have been placed within a human form of life with a combination of these modes of material nature. Certainly, this creation, just in this one universe alone, this one material universe, can be most confusing, as well as something that it's practically impossible to completely understand. What to speak of transcending it, or being able to leave it. Just like in a prison, you can't leave unless they let you leave. So similarly, it's impossible to leave this universe unless we are allowed to leave. Unfortunately, most people in the world, they don't have this information, nor do they accept the information, unfortunately. By Srila Prabhupada's grace, this information is being given to the whole world. But how respectful people will be to Krishna, to Vasudeva, is only, we can only, at least I can only consider that it's only by Lord Chaitanya's mercy that they will accept it. Just like when Srila Prabhupada stepped off the boat in Boston, he didn't think that anyone would accept anything he would say. This was the world of darkness and passion, and the way of life is completely different from Vrindavan, from a holy, or the holiest of holy places, and the lives of saintly persons there. So Srila Prabhupada didn't think people would care for his message. He didn't think people would want to listen as soon as they would hear something like one should renounce intoxication, and meat eating, and womanizing, and gambling. He thought people would just walk away. And, because this is the way of life of the Malechian Yavana civilizations. But we see that Srila Prabhupada's mission came out successful. It was blessed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is all by Lord Chaitanya's grace that this is happening, that somehow ever people get Lord Chaitanya's special grace and they take an interest in understanding Krishna consciousness. And not only take an interest, but develop some faith. How is it possible without contact with the touchstone? How is it possible for ordinary metal to become significant, to turn into something like gold, unless it comes in contact with a very special stone we commonly call touchstone? So how is it possible for those surrounded by, entrapped by the lower modes of material nature to change their minds, to change their hearts, and to become devotees of Krishna and Vishnu? It's only by coming in contact with that touchstone, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Lord Nityananda. And that, through their pure devotee, they have wonderful devotees. Like many times we judge people by their associates. we see so-and-so, and then we see them surrounded by their associates. And most of the time people will pass some judgment. So in the same way, it's all great persons have associates. All demigods have associates. The Lord has his associates. His incarnations have their associates. So similarly, Lord Chaitanya has his associates. And they are miraculous devotees who can deliver anyone. I mean, we have to understand that Lord Chaitanya didn't appear and change things abruptly like he did in other incarnations, such as Matsya saving the Vedas in the devastating waters. He appears and takes control of the boat that the Vedas are riding on with King Subrata. Or like Lord Nrsingadev just suddenly appearing and destroying the demoniac rule of Hiranyakashipu and installing his devoted son on the throne. Or Lord Ramachandra defeating the Rakshasa civilization which had conquered the universe. No, but Lord Chaitanya, he's different. He appears at a time when Vedic culture is being completely eclipsed. And a Malecha culture has taken control of the land of Bharatavash. And Lord Chaitanya appears in this culture where there still exists in Vedic civilization. They compose the majority of the people, and the people are practicing to various degrees according to their understanding and the teachings within their different sampradayas. And most prominent is a sampradaya created by Lord Shiva in his form of Sankaracharya. And it is very impersonal, commonly Srila Prabhupada called Mayavad, where they think everything in this world is Maya. It's just an illusion. And we can transcend that by simply understanding Vedanta. And becoming situated again within the all-pervading Brahman. So this was controlling the whole land of Bharatavash. You had a Malecha civilization controlling the government, and you had a Mayavadi civilization controlling spiritual life, practically speaking. And whatever devotees or Hindus were there were completely enamored with ritualistic activities, samskaras, to enjoy their life in this world. Even though their culture was suppressed, still they wanted to enjoy themselves within their culture and simply pay the taxes necessary to appease the Muslims and enjoy their family life. And the renunciates just didn't consider any of it real. They wanted to just go off to the Himalayan mountains and transcend the whole thing because it was all simply useless. Even they considered the Dashavatars, the incarnations of Vishnu, to simply be mundane, composed of the material mode of goodness for some temporary show. Also an illusion for those who are Brahman situated. So in this way, you had a world that was completely captured by Maya. A world that accepted the slaughter of cows, and a world that accepted the slaughter of Vishnu. That practically speaking, no better than demons. So Lord Chaitanya, he appears in such a civilization, and he doesn't dismantle it or fight with all of them and kill them and established, some devotee in charge of the government who supports certain rishis. But instead he benevolently gives to the whole world the lechas, yavanas, and even the Mayavadis. He gives to all of them love for Krishna. He, like it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he just breaks open the storehouse of love of God. And all this is taking place in eternal time, practically within a second. We can't, it's just to calculate the small amount of time that Lord Chaitanya's mission will exist. And one day of Brahma, just within one Kali Yuga, which is it's a Divya Yuga. It's only one of 4 ages. It's only in one of the 4 ages, which is called the Divya Yuga. 1,000 of these 4 ages is a day of Brahma. So only within one of these Divya Yugas, and within only one of the ages, in the shortest age, for only a fragment of that age's time, 10,000 years out of 432,000 years, Lord Chaitanya is doing the impossible. He's recreating a Satya Yuga and time of goodness within the time of darkness, within the time of tamasic mode. He's creating a sattvic mode. And he's doing this all through his devotees. He's practically, he practically enjoys himself within the Hindu community. Becomes the best of the best amongst the scholars because he appears in the scholastic class of people. And so he becomes the best of them, enjoying himself like that. Just completely defeating them all in debate and logic and reason. But then he becomes a devotee, and for a short amount of time he completely captures the heart of all the people in Navadvip, and then he leaves, and then for a very short amount of time he travels around and teaches Krishna consciousness. But then he enters into samadhi. For the last 18 years of his life is practically spent in samadhi. And he leaves it all up to his devotees. Everything. Including the glory of doing it. Lord Nityananda becomes this incomprehensible preacher who personally delivers the mercantile community, not the Brahmin community, the Kshatriya community. He delivers some Brahmins and some Kshatriyas like Jagai and Madai, who were born in Brahmin families but who became sort of like Kshatriyas. They were the ones ruling. They were like the sheriff in the town. So, but Lord Chaitanya, he delivered Lord Nityananda delivered the mercantile community. And people couldn't understand why he was going around dancing with Sudras and Vaishyas. All the Brahmins, this was incomprehensible to them. There was even one Brahmin who went to Lord Chaitanya. He was Lord Chaitanya's great devotee, and at the right time he spoke to him and asked him, he confided in him about all of his doubts about this Nityananda Prabhu. Who can understand him? He's supposed to be a mendicant. He wasn't even married at that time. He's supposed to be a mendicant. Even when he came to Navadvip, he was already at least probably 32 years old. He had already traveled around India for 20 years from the time he was 12 years old. Just traveling from pilgrimage spot to pilgrimage spot to pilgrimage spot. And absorbed in his own Leela doing that. Then staying in Mathura waiting for Lord Chaitanya to come out of his Adi Leela. his youthful Leela, and to take up his Sankirtan movement, then he would go there. So he didn't come to Navadvip till he was like almost 32 years old. And then, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, and 20 years passed. And then he practically left the world. He sent Lord Nityananda back to Bengal to preach. So Lord Nityananda may have still been in his 40s, just preaching and considered a mendicant, but yet walking around in this fancy dress, with all this jewelry on, and exotic turbans, and carrying instead of a staff, an iron rod, surrounded by all these devotees just chanting. These devotees who came as the cowherd people. We may also consider that Krishna doesn't pay attention to any of this in the material world. He's just enjoying his Leela. He leaves it all up to Vishnu. And he comes only once in a whole day of Brahma, out of 1,000 cycles of ages. He comes once. And he has already come and gone. And even while here, he did his killing with weapons in his Vishnu form, his Vasudeva Krishna, his Krishna in Vrindavan. He just enjoyed Vrindavan. He showed people what it was like, and then he went back. He doesn't have to deal with the material creation. But yet, it's the cowherd boys who come, who incarnate to be with Nityananda. And it's the cowherd girls who incarnate to be with Lord Chaitanya. All of his disciples, chief disciples, expansions of gopis. And so Lord Nityananda is with his cowherd friends who have taken the forms of these unbelievable devotees and preachers. Abhiram Thakur walking around with a whip. And when he whips somebody, they become Krishna conscious. It's like a fictional story of what in the Western world we'd call a preacher who somehow ever delivers the fallen. So this person could walk around and whip somebody. And then another devotee who, if you bow down, inappropriately, one's head would crack. You may have that mixed up with something.
The same person.
It was the same person? Yeah, so all kinds of exotic devotees that were just delivering the world. And they didn't just leave it there, because every time somebody left, people would cry and want to leave too. When Lord Chaitanya left, Srivas Thakur wanted to leave. Gadadhar Pandit wanted to leave. Just like when Krishna left, Arjuna wanted to leave. The Pandavas wanted to leave. But they would leave behind devotees. And you can imagine how difficult it was sometimes. I think it was maybe Krishnadas Kaviraj, perhaps? Or maybe Narottam, but they went to see Lord Chaitanya, but he had left. And so they were sent to Gadadhar Pandit. And they get there and he's gone. So then, they're sent to Vrindavan for Rupa and Sanatana. They get there and he's gone. They're gone. So finally, Jiva Goswami helps them out, if I'm not mistaken. They had it mixed up. But the point is that devotees would leave. And other devotees would take over.
Is that Srinivas?
Huh?
Wasn't it Srinivas?
Maybe, yeah. I can't remember exactly right now. You have to research it. So, on down through the centuries. Continuing down, sometimes appearing to be completely lost, to where the world becomes, controlled by, very imperialistic, malicious civilizations, Vedic culture completely suppressed, exploited. Nobody even cares, practically speaking, outside the culture for it. After persecuting the Jewish people for 2,000 years, because the Roman Empire destroyed them because of revolting against them, and then, the Christians separated themselves because they were just a Jewish sect. They separated themselves and suffered what persecutions they suffered, because it was probably a lot less than what the Jews were suffering. So, and the Jewish people became persecuted up until what has famously become known as the Holocaust, where Nazi Germany, killed 6 million of them in concentration camps and work camps, slave camps, because they simply thought they were exploitive, inferior people who were simply polluting the Aryan race. But they became somewhat famous after that. They were given their homeland back. They were given the protection of the strongest countries in the world. They were given also, they said no one helped them in the wars against the Arabs, but all of their military equipment and prowess came from the Western world. And everybody knows about them. But nobody cares a fig, practically speaking, for the Holocaust that the Hindu people underwent for 1,000 years. Not just the 4 years of Nazi Germany, or we could say 12 years of Nazi Germany, through the 30s till the end of World War II. The Hindu people from 1000 until its liberation and division in 1947, well over 1,000 years of constant persecution. Constant persecution. But who knows about it? Who says anything about it? They give the Jewish people a country. Judaism is the religion of Israel. There are like 27 Muslim countries where Islam is the religion, the state religion of those countries. There are 12 Christian countries, including England, that it's the state religion. But if anyone would dare say that in India, Hinduism should be the state religion, that's fanatical.
It's all because of Gandhi.
Yeah, that's why he was assassinated. But in any case, all of this is just taking place in a very short amount of time. And Lord Chaitanya's movement will somehow ever miraculously, deliver everyone, where we think it's impossible for people to understand and accept. We see that this is happening. So I have to stop now. I don't have time to try to weave it into a less than perfect conclusion, but at least a conclusion. So, as though we were writing or something, but we can stop even in this very politically disturbed day and time. Lord Chaitanya's movement will bring about its prophecy of an age of goodness within this Kali Yuga, where people somehow ever will all get along. Despite their differences, there'll be a unity in diversity. by the grace of Lord Chaitanya. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.